Hello, hello. Happy Sunday, beautiful people. It is so very good to be here with you as we gather together to celebrate the magnificence and significance of the power and presence of God, Mother, Father, God, flowing in, through, and as us. Let us begin with prayer. And so I invite you here and now in this moment to close your eyes. And let's just take a conscious breath in and a conscious breath out. And another conscious breath in. And we breathe out. Centering ourselves here and now, we breathe in and we breathe out. There is one mind, one power, one presence that is working in all, through all, and as all, that is working in us, through us, and as us, that is working in you, through you, and as you, that is working in me, through me, and as me. There is one life. That life is Mother, Father, God. That life is perfect. That life is good. And that life is our life now. The life of love is our life now. The life of abundance is our life now. The life of healing is our life now. The life of joy is our life now. The life of ease is our life now. The life of good is our life now. The life of solutions is our life now. The life of victory is our life now. The life of triumph is our life now. The life of overcoming is our life now. There is one life, and that life is our life now. As I recognize this to be true, I am unifying and harmonizing my heart, my mind, and soul with the reality that we are one with God and one of God. We are one with the one. And because of that truth, we have great power to shape and influence our lives. Because of that truth, we live, move, and have our being in great possibility. Today, we turn the focus of our attention to possibility. Today, we focus our attention to right answers and right seeing and right being. Today, we move and turn the focus of our attention to healing and prosperity. Here and now, I speak this word in faith, knowing that this gathering we call the weekend service is prosperous and prospering. We prosper by being here, recognizing that prosperity is well-being in action. Therefore, we declare that there is well-being in our minds, there is well-being in our hearts, there is well-being in our lives. There is well-being in our minds, there is well-being in our hearts, there is well-being in our finances. There is well-being in our minds, there is well-being in our hearts, there is well-being in our bodies. There is well-being in our minds, there is well-being in our hearts, there is well-being in our relationships. There is well-being in our minds. There is well-being in our hearts. There is well-being in our family. There is well-being in our minds. There is well-being in our hearts. There is well-being in our business, in our career. There is well-being in our lives, for we are prosperous and prospering. I am so grateful and thankful to have a space and a place that we call home. Celebration Spiritual Center, a place and a space that we can come to each and every week, the weekend service, that supports us in remembering that we are worthy, that supports us in remembering that we are one with God, that supports us in remembering that we are sinless, that supports us in remembering that we are fearless, that supports us in remembering that we are loved beyond measure. Today, we lean into that love. Today, we allow that love. Today, we receive that love. From this place of awareness, I release this prayer back into the law, which is always in operation. I know that it responds to us and becomes for us and through us based on the vibration of the thought and the word that is spoken. This word is good. Therefore, the outcome must be good. So with joy and thanksgiving, I release this prayer. Thank you, God, in, through, and as us. And together we say, amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
So it is.
So it is, and so it must be. Well, hello again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are. I know that it is good. It is a good moment. It is a good time and a good opportunity. And we are looking forward to having a good experience through this thing we call the weekend service. We're so grateful to gather together with you this week. We're so grateful to continue to study the mental equivalent. We're so grateful to have a home, as I said in the prayer, a place that reminds us of who and what and whose we really are. We want to take a moment to say hello and welcome to our first-time guests. If this is your first time here joining us at Celebration Spiritual Center, we're so happy that something brought you here, that someone brought you here, or somehow you found us. There's so many different ways that you could have gotten here, but we're grateful that you listened to that inner yes. You listened to that that inner pull within you that brought you here. And we're confident that something will be said or done that will support you in thriving in your life. Something will be said or done that will support you in living an even more empowered life. Something will be said or done that reminds you of how amazing, beautiful, powerful, and loved you absolutely are. And so as a first-time guest, we would love to stay in touch with you. What you see here on your screen is the information to access your digital connection card. Just text the word welcome to 347-472-1078. No additional information is needed. Just text the word welcome and you'll receive a reply with a link. That link is the link to the digital connection card. Complete that information. The most important piece of information is your email address. And then once you complete that information and submit it, you'll receive a follow-up text that says you're all set. At that point, you are. You'll be on our mailing list. We send out a weekly email that goes out on Fridays, and you'll have all of the good information to stay connected to Celebration Spiritual Center and to know what's going on in the life of CSC. And you'll find that as we move into the news and updates, there are things that we'll share that will also be in your inbox in that newsletter that you're going to want to have access to in the future. So again, welcome. We're so happy that you're here, and sit back and receive. So with that said, I think it's a wonderful time to tap into our news and updates so that we can move forward with the meditation and with week 4 of our Masterclass. So as I just shared, we are in Masterclass season at CSC. This month we are studying the New Thought classic, The Mental Equivalent by Emmett Fox. We're on the 4th chapter today, and so we still encourage you to get the book. It's available in many different formats. You can also actually Google and find copies of the book available online, so you don't have to purchase the text if you don't want to, but we're studying the book line by line. It's been a powerful experience, and it will continue to be. I'm excited about today's chapter. And because we're in our masterclass, our format is a little different. So this month we're not hearing from Soul 21, which allows us to have a little more time to dig into the text and move through the chapter. Every Wednesday morning, we gather together for the Momentum Prayer Call. The Momentum Prayer Call is a wonderful way to continue the momentum that we co-create here on Sundays. It is also a wonderful way to start the momentum in the middle of your week. So we, of course, are very intentional with our daily spiritual practice. We are doing something every day to connect and reconnect and remind ourselves of the truth of who and what we are, so that we're not fooled by all of the things happening out in the world, but we connect and we're anchored, and then we go out in the world from that anchored place. And so on Wednesdays, the Momentum Prayer Call can support you in doing that very thing. We share a reading, and then we pray, and we move on with our day. You also see there's a playback number because we do record the prayer each week, and so the most recent prayer is always available via the playback number. Also, for everyone that's on our mailing list, the link to that prayer is always shared in the Friday email, so you can click that link and listen to it on any one of your devices, and that may be a bit more convenient. So we encourage you to stay connected. We encourage you to tap into the vibration of prayer, and of course we encourage you to join us live, because it is powerful to be that intentional, right? To schedule a time, set the intention to be there on that time, and show up for yourself in that way. Now, if you have a prayer request, we encourage you to send that prayer request to prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org. That prayer request is received by our prayer champions, and it is also received by Pastor Yolanda and myself. We are always holding the community in our hearts and in our minds, holding the highest watch, and knowing that nothing but good is coming to and through you. But we recognize there are things showing up, and you may have a specific prayer request. It may be for yourself, or it may be for someone else. Please send that email. We also encourage you to follow up as the prayer is answered, as there's a shift, as there's a change, and something powerful has happened in your life or the life of someone you care about. Let us know about that as well. We love to hear how prayer is working in the community. We encourage you each week to invite someone to join us here on the live stream. We are always looking for those that are looking for us. If you know someone who is, you think may be aligned with what CSC is all about, let them know about CSC. Send them a link to a past stream, a past sermon, a past meditation, or music, and then invite them to join us live. We recognize that while we all know about this good thing, there are still so many people who are looking for a community like this and simply didn't know it was available to them. And sometimes all it takes is just letting someone know about it. Each month we highlight a sermon series that we have so many now across our 10 years. And so this month we're highlighting the Dynamic Laws of Prosperity, which is a sermon series inspired by the book of the same title by Catherine Ponder. I encourage you to check that out. That series, I believe, is from 2017 or 2018. Powerful series. PY closed that series with the sermon, I Dare You to Prosper. But you can go to our YouTube channel. It's available there linked on the first page of the YouTube channel. That playlist, encourage you to check that out. You know, you can, I don't know, if you're at work, just go to YouTube and press play and keep that in your consciousness while you're doing other things, or even as you may be traveling here and there throughout the summer. This is a wonderful series to tap into. And that concludes our announcements for our news and updates for this week, which means that we have the awesome opportunity to go within, and we will be led ever so lovingly and gently by PY.
Yes, it is time for the meditation experience. The experience of God is an individualized one. The experience of God is something that you can find anytime you close your eyes, take that breath, and remember that you are connected. We talk about the experience of God and not just the words or memorizing text. We love and appreciate all of the sacred texts, and we study them, we teach them. But it's only through direct experience of God within you that you make sure that you know these things are true, because you feel them alive within you. And so we take time every Sunday to meditate, to experience God for ourselves, to know that God is here and available, to know that answers, connection, and peace and ease are available. And this month we've been focused on the affirmative thought. I allow peace and prosperity to come to me. Well, PG just opened up the service talking about prosperity as well-being. I just allow well-being to come to me. I allow well-being in my health, in my relationships, in my career. I just allow well-being. The optimal word is allow. We don't have to go and get it. We don't have to hustle and grind and manipulate to get it. We just allow it to come. We are a magnet for peace and prosperity. We are a magnet for peace and well-being of all kinds. And it is only because we feel we have to go out and grind that we don't experience it. So let's forgive ourselves and set ourselves free. Let's realign ourselves and let's allow peace. Let's allow prosperity. Our understanding and our knowing of God knows that there is no separation between us and this thing we call the divine. Therefore, there is no separation between us and peace and prosperity. No more hustling, no more manipulation, no more grinding, just breathing, just opening, and just giving yourself permission to receive it. That's all it takes. And so we get to practice this knowing today. We get to practice this in our cells and in our breath and in our heartbeat. We get to feel peace and prosperity right where it is within us. Let's just take our focus off the external. Take our focus off of the goals that the world says we should achieve and bring it back to the receptive mode. Bring it back and allow peace and prosperity to come to us. Are we ready? Let's prepare ourselves to receive it, to allow it, to breathe it. Go ahead and look around the room And notice where you are. Go ahead, just notice where you are. You're not in the past. You're not in the future. You're right here where the peace is. You're right here where the well-being is. And plant the palms on the tops of the thighs. And from this place of safety, knowing that you are right here, there is no tiger. There is nothing to fear. Notice the palms on the tops of the thighs and allow the eyelids to close. That simple act of allowing the eyelids to close is another signal that we are allowing the peace and the prosperity to come to us. Closing the eyelids, noticing the breath now. That's all that is required. Our choice to breathe, to notice, and to allow. And whether the breath appears to be deep or appears to be shallow, we let go of all judgments of the breath. We are just in gratitude that it is moving. That same breath, that same in and out flow, we just experience it for ourselves, right here and now. We have been endowed with the ability to choose our experiences, choose how we receive, choose how we flow, choose what we think and what we allow into our lives. Right now, we're going to choose to move the breath together. Take your focus and your attention deep into the low belly. And as you focus there, the energy and the intention is set. We want to breathe together. We want to allow peace and prosperity. So let's take a breath in on the count of 4, expanding the low belly. Hold for a count of 4. And now relax the jaw and release the breath. Count of 4. Again, intention and focus on the low belly. Inhale, count of 4. Hold, count of 4. Relax the jaw and release whatever would block you from receiving peace and prosperity. Let those thoughts go. Let the past go. Let the future go. And now let's move that energy and that intention in through the low belly, up through the rib cage, expanding the sides of the body, the front of the body, holding there. And sighing it out, relaxing the jaw. Again, in through the low belly, up through the rib cage, expanding the sides, but let that breath go to the back. All the way around the body, filling up. Hold there. And without collapsing the body, release the breath. In through the low belly, up through the rib cage, and now sending that breath up to the heart chakra, center of the chest, that altar to the divine, and hold for 4. And sigh it out. We love to breathe, we love to feel the intention and the energy rise in and all the way up to the heart. hold it there. And again, without collapsing the body, release the breath. Sigh it out. We are intentional with our breath. We elongate the breath. Low belly, midsection, up through the heart. Let's take a few rounds of very deep, intentional breath in and up. And when you reach the top, this time close the lips and let's slow our count down to 6. Inhaling and exhaling for a count of 6. We slow everything down so that we can receive. We slow everything down so that we can feel. We slow everything down so we can allow peace and prosperity to come to us. A few more rounds on your own. That's how easy it is to receive. Creating a new neural pathway of receptivity that flows on the breath. Letting go of the struggle and allowing the ease, allowing the peace and prosperity. Beautiful, everyone. Now let's take this energy and this relaxed intention into our feet. Maybe you raise the heels or the toes, but just notice that all we have to do is focus there and the energy is there. Stop the movement, relax the feet, release the breath, and allow the peace. Feeling that connection underneath the soles of the feet and sending that energy up from the earth through the soles, across the ankles. Relax the ankles. Our flow is easy and intentional, sending that energy across the shins and the calves. Relax the shins and the calves. We allow the energy and the intention to flow across the knees. Our symbol of flexibility, our symbol of forgiveness, we relax and allow. Relax the knees. Allow the peace and the prosperity. Energy flows across the hamstrings and the glutes and the thighs. Your awareness is there now. Send the breath there now. Relax the thighs, the glutes, the hamstrings. Just release, knowing that the universe can hold you and keeps you in peace and prosperity. There's an energy that is now gathered at the base of the spine. We allow it to move. We allow the Kundalini to rise. We no longer block. We are open and receptive to peace and prosperity. Inhale, allowing the energy. Exhale, allow. Inhale, rising. Exhale, allowing. Inhale, rising. Exhale, allowing. There may be a tingle, there may be an opening. Just inhale. Exhale, allow. As that energy flows up, we receive it. Exhale, we allow it. And up. and up and out the crown of our heads. We are a beacon for light. We are a channel for the divine to flow in and through. We stay in the receptive mode. We imagine the energy gathered above us all, connecting us, aligning us, and allowing us to experience peace and prosperity. Give it permission now to flow back down through the crown, across and activating, balancing the third eye, down the throat, and notice as if the soft touch of a loved one on the shoulders. Relax the shoulders and allow the energy to flow down the arms, out the fingertips. See yourself, notice yourself as an open channel. Scan the body and notice if you're still holding tension or tightness anywhere. Choose to open, choose to allow peace and prosperity to come. It comes where it is given permission, and we give it full permission now. As we prepare for our silent time, you can leave the palms turned down or turn the palms up to receive more, whatever feels good in this moment. I will monitor the time, and you take the inward journey. If the mind wanders, it's okay. It's just doing what it was designed to do. But we were designed to choose. Bring it back to our affirmative thought. I allow peace and prosperity to come to me. Feel that within yourself. Relax into the breath. I allow peace and prosperity to come to me. Breathing in and out. I allow peace and prosperity to come to me now. With our eyes still closed, we enjoy how good it feels to be connected on the inside, knowing how magnetic we are, how we get to draw to ourselves that which is peace and that which is prosperity. With our eyes closed, we feel the vibration and the tingle or the relaxation, however it is showing up for you, and we bring that with us. With our eyes still closed, we know that this connection can never be severed. We take the mental picture. We allow the sensation. As we slowly inhale and exhale, with our eyes closed, we feel where we are in our bodies. And we love how our bodies feel in this moment. Go ahead and turn the palms down, making contact with the tops of the thighs. Feeling that energy moving. Feeling the connection. Knowing that no sudden movement, no subtle movement can change or break the connection. It is eternal. Let's start to make our way back now. As I said, we are a magnet for peace and prosperity. Feel that sensation. You see, a magnet doesn't try to be anything. It doesn't have to be. It just allows itself to be as it was created. We allow peace and prosperity come back with us to accompany us this week. And then if any time we feel disconnected, we close our eyes and we affirm the truth. I allow peace and prosperity to come to me. And slowly bring the palms together at heart center. Lightly touch the thumbs into the sternum. Bow the chin towards the fingertips. Noticing that opening. We pause to feel and be in gratitude for our practice of meditation. Slowly allow the eyelids to open. Soft gaze. Soft focus. Nice elongated breaths. Inhale, raise the chin, raise the gaze, keeping it soft. Exhale the breath. Namaste.
Yes, yes. Namaste. Thank you, PY.
You're welcome.
I say it every week. Come back to the stream. Come back to this meditation. You can use it at any time, right? To any of the meditations, and use that in your daily spiritual practice. Well, we are in week 4 of our masterclass, Get What You Want, using the power of your mind to shape your life, to shape your reality. We have moved through some wonderful things. First, in the first chapter, understanding what a mental equivalent is. In the second chapter, talking about universal polarity. Last week, building a new mental equivalent. And of course, this week then will be about maintaining that mental equivalent. But before we get into the text, we do have a question that we received related to last week's chapter, chapter 3. So we're going to touch in on the question, and I think wonderfully we'll answer the question, and then but I think there's a lot in the reading for this week that also kind of points back to some answers related to the question. So let's dig in. So the question we received, can my mental equivalent declaration statement and new vision include someone else? I.e., can I outpicture more open verbal communication with my partner that includes both of us being more open and transparent with our communication styles? If so, do I just keep it changed in my mind, or should I share my thought equivalent statement with my partner, making it somewhat of a mastermind mental equivalent goal? So this is a really great question for a bunch of reasons. And I'll say this, we'll share more at the end of class. Next week, we're going to review some key components and then also support you in making this actionable. So we're going to support you in choosing what that goal is that you are now creating the new mental equivalent and how to maintain it, some practical steps, right? So, but to that end, I think the first thing that we want to check in on, or that one would want to check in on when we're talking about it involving someone else, is to be clear that we're not trying to change someone else, right? And this can be difficult when we're in partnership, right? When we may want our partner to do something or act a certain way or communicate in a certain way that they're not, right? So if there is even an inkling of I want them to change, we got to step back, right? We got to step back, because what we're doing then is we're low key trying to manipulate, right? Use these principles for manipulation, and that never works out. Long term, that never works out for you, right? So that's the first thing that I just want to flag. It's very important that we're not trying to manipulate someone or change someone, right? But of course, right, in partnership, in the question, right, this idea for more open, transparent communication, that desire is a wonderful desire. And so what I would encourage you to think about is, if you have more open and transparent communication, what would the effect of that be, right? How would you feel? And more importantly, because communication is two ways, right? How would you be communicating, right? How would you be transparent? Because really the mental equivalent then is about that outcome, right? The communication is a how, and that's not the outcome,
That's right.
Right? There's something that you desire. Out of that would come a deeper connection, a closeness. Out of that would come both of you feeling understood. You could think of so many different things that would be, what would be the result of that? And then that's really the mental equivalent that you want to focus in on.
Yeah, there's actually a deeper, it's not on the surface of just he or she is not giving me what I want. It's really, why do I want what I want, right? It is understanding that there's something within me that feels like it's not receiving something, and get to the root of that.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things we need to help in formulating our mental equivalent. It is never about the other person.
Yeah.
Never. It is never about the other person, especially in relationship, because all of us have been through so many things, had so many experiences in our lives that have come to formulate how we show up in relationship, that we might be feeling like we're missing something that has nothing to do with the other person. Right? And so that's what we're tapping into. We're tapping into that aspect of ourselves that is in want of something. And then we give it to ourselves. Or then we clear up our misunderstanding or the old pattern that was established when we didn't receive it before. Right? So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at. The mastermind idea is great if it's not manipulation. It sounds like there's a trying to control him to make him better or whatever, and him or her better, and that's not what we're doing here. Right?
And I love that second part of the question, because the mental equivalent can be a mastermind and a partnership, right? So, but it's interesting. I've told this story often, but I think it's instructive in this moment as it relates to PY and I, right? So we absolutely use the mastermind principle, right? Holding the mental equivalent of Celebration Spiritual Center, right? But at the beginning, I had an idea of how I thought she should think about it or respond to it, because I was kind of I felt like I was already all in, and she was like, hold up, I'm not sure, right? and I got upset, right? And what I had to remember,
Really upset.
I was really upset. I was frustrated, right? I was frustrated with her. Like, for a moment, I didn't like her. Like, why are you not?
Why are you not seeing this?
Right?
Why are you not doing this?
Right? But I had to do my work because I recognized, I said, okay, this is about me. I'm never upset for the reason I think. This has nothing to do with what she's saying, doing, or how she's responding, right? And what I got to remember and remind myself through that moment was, we may have the same goal, but where it becomes problematic for me is if I think she has to approach the goal or the mental equivalent in a specific way because that's how I'm approaching it or seeing it. We still got to the same place, right? And we still co-created a brilliant, beautiful, powerful, thriving community called CSC because we were both holding the mental equivalent and working together and visiting together. But the process is going to look different, for the two of us in that way. So, like I said, I've told that story, but I think it's so instructive in this sense.
And also, if he had approached me and said, this is the mental equivalent and you need to get on board, I would have been on a different boat, bus, train. I would not have wanted to get on board with that, right? I had to form my own ideas. There was an idea of what it could be, but I had to move through my own process to arrive at what it meant for me.
Yep.
Right? Yep. So him telling me would have gotten the opposite result.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it was a wonderful, again, instructive and teaching moment for me. And just remembering that, my thinking what it looks like usually ain't right. Is that right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Just let it go, right? If the vision is, because that's the thing, I was so excited about the vision. Like, if the vision is this powerful and real, then God in, through, and as her is going to move her through her process, just like it moved me through my process. Because I wasn't gung-ho initially either, right? I moved through my
and
thing.
he had forgotten that, see? Because he was on board at that point. So he was like, well, of course she's on board. That's not how it works, right? Individualized expressions of the divine.
Exactly.
We each are.
Exactly.
And in relationship, again, we're all moving through our learning and unlearning of the things we were told about ourselves, the kinds of relationships we've been in the past. All of that is operating.
Yep.
And it is only in our own individualized consciousness can we make the change.
Yeah.
Right?
Real talk.
And it's not just relationships. It's in anything.
Right.
Any relationship. It's not just romantic. Excuse me. It's any relationship. It could be parent-child.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I'm sure.
I got stories there, too. As a parent.
It could be any relationship. Friendship. Right? Where you think that person should act a certain way. What you hold in your mind is the best for all. Right? You hold that, the highest knowing for all. Because you don't know in that respect. It's a brilliant question because we all do that in our own way in relationships. Anytime that there appears to be an other, we decide what that other should do or think, right? And I also recognize there was in the question about me changing.
Right.
That's the place of power.
Yep.
That's the only place of power.
Absolutely.
And you'll be surprised at the rate at which things move and morph and change when you surrender the outcome. And you focus in on your why. You focus in on cleaning up all of the things that kept you in fear or doubt that you couldn't receive your why. Right?
We quote Wayne Dyer, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. But we don't think about that, right? It's all about when I transform, my experience transforms. And it's not even necessarily that someone outside of us changed. It's just we see them differently because we are different, right? And that's really what's going on.
Again, anyone. It could be child to parent. Like you might have an older parent and you want them to act a certain way. You want them to do this or that. And that's not how it works. See, the highest knowing knows the best for all.
Yes.
And already believes the best for all will occur. And so it's not worried when you're worried.
Right.
It's not afraid when you're afraid.
Right.
It's not doubting or angry or any of those emotions that we as humans experience, and that's fine. But something has to be grounded in the truth, and that is the divine.
Right. Right.
Right? So you rely on, you work on your why, and you let the how, which is also the when and the where,
Yeah.
operate.
Yep. Yep. Wonderful question. Wonderful question. And
Awesome
again,
question.
I do think some things in the reading kind of speak to it as well. So as it relates, we may come back.
All right, let's get into it.
Yes, yes.
Is everybody enjoying the mental equivalent? It's a short text, but it is, once you push aside the things that are problematic, the truth is the truth. And that's why we always take the opportunity, at least once a year in this way, to go line by line, to help you understand and to clear up and clean up and all of that, because the truth is the truth. Now, it has to come through a human form sometimes, and that person's beliefs and unconscious beliefs get in the way.
Yep.
But the truth is the truth.
Absolutely. Maintaining the new equivalent. It is always good to make a practical experiment, so I advise you to take a single problem in your life, something you want to get rid of or something you want to obtain, and change your thought about this thing, and keep it changed. Do not be in a hurry to select your problem. Take your time.
Right. What did I say in meditation? Slow down. You know, the thing that might be the most in your face might not be the thing that really requires the change. It might just be a symptom of something deeper.
Yeah, and again, we're going to talk more next week about that selecting and how to move forward. Do not tell anyone you are doing this. I call that the hush your mouth principle. If you tell a friend about it, you are thereby strongly affirming the existence of the problem, which is the very thing you are trying to get rid of. If you tell your friend that you are going to work on your rheumatism or on lack, you are making these things very real to your subconscious mind. Also, your spiritual energy is leaking away as electricity does in what we call a ground. Take your problem and change your mind concerning it and keep it changed for a month, and you will be astonished at the results you will get. Now, this is interesting because if you're honest with yourself, how many things in your life have you been able to keep change for a month, right? There were some things you wanted to change your mind around, and you changed your mind for a couple days or a couple weeks, or as Fox writes in the previous chapter, you come to CSC on Sundays, right? You're streaming, and your mind has changed on Sunday. But by the time you get to Monday, you're focused on something else, right? You haven't kept it changed. So it's absolutely true, right? There's so much writing and thinking about, does it take 21 days to develop a habit, 30 days? But it's absolutely true that if you can keep your mind changed for a month, you will be astonished at the results you will get.
Right. And this is not a judgment, like of whether you've kept your mind changed in the past and all that. If you read and follow the stories of any of the spiritual teachers, they've gone through periods of back and forth. That's the only reason they can say, please just keep your mind changed. Because they've experienced it, right? We have experienced it.
Absolutely.
And especially if it's something that's very close to you, it's your body, it's something very much that you want. It can feel hard sometimes, challenging to keep your mind changed. But that's why you have tools to help you keep your mind changed. The very fact that you pick up a tool means you're desirous of the mental change.
If you really do keep your thought changed, you will not have to wait a month. If you really change your thought and keep it changed, the demonstration may come in a few hours. But to keep tensely looking for the demonstrations is really affirming the existence of the problem, is it not? The secret is to keep your thought changed into the new condition. So keep your thought carefully, quietly expressive of the new condition that you want to produce. Believe what you are thinking, and to prove that you believe it, you must act the part. And this reminds me of the idea, if you were a gardener, right, and you were planting cucumbers, right, you would put the seed in the ground and you recognize there's a process that has to happen. You wouldn't keep digging up the ground again to see what's happening to the seed, right? But that's the same energy of when he talks about here, this tensely looking for the demonstration. It's really affirming the existence of the problem. And so just like we know, if we continue to dig up that seed, we would actually harm the seed and possibly prevent the process of the seed breaking open and the growth, etc. So then that's what we're doing with our demonstrations. By changing your mind about your problem in this way and keeping it changed, you are building a new mental equivalent, a mental equivalent of harmony and success. And that mental equivalent, as we know, must be outpictured in your experience. For a while, you will find that your thought will keep slipping back into the old rut. Such is the force of habit. But if you are quietly persistent, you will gain victory. It is always a little difficult to change a habit, but it can be done. And then the new right habit becomes easier than the old wrong habit. And that is how a new mental equivalent is built. Change your mind and keep it changed. Now, I love this. I love the acknowledgement of it is a little difficult. It's not hard. It's not impossible, but it is a little difficult, uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. It's one of my favorite words when it comes to spiritual teaching, understanding, and changing. It's just unfamiliar. It's uncomfortable.
Yep.
Your old way is so familiar that you don't even challenge it until it becomes too painful.
Exactly.
And then you challenge it, right? That's just the way we as humans do a lot of the times.
Right. And it's interesting because when we think about our habits, I love to come to some of the simple habits we have, like tying our shoes. You may not even remember when and how you learned to tie your shoes. There's a part of you that feels like, I've always known how to tie my shoes. And yet we know factually that's impossible, right? Or, brushing your teeth or even feeding yourself, right? Or it could be the way you travel to work. There was a point in time that was brand new. And you were kind of concerned and you didn't know, I'm not sure how traffic happens on certain days and you left way too early or if you're here in New York, you had to take different subways than you were used to taking and you weren't sure about the transfer, or you had to take a bus and a subway. And it was like awkward and unfamiliar, and you might have missed a train, you might have missed a bus, or you're driving, you might have missed an exit, or, and then later somebody told you a shortcut or oh yeah, you can do. And you do it so habitually now, you've forgotten about that little difficult period, right? And even that I've had experiences. Have you ever had an experience where you're so in automatic that instead of going where you were supposed to go, you were just in the automatic? You're so used to driving a certain place and you just took an automatic turn and was like, oh, I wasn't even supposed to be going this way. I forgot where I was, right? So even that's how that old habit shows up. It's like, oh, it's so automatic. Before I realized it, I was already turning in that direction. I was already getting off this stop that I'm not supposed to get off of this time. I'm using these examples to lighten it so that we don't make creating a mental equivalent harder or any more serious than those things. Right? It's like, oh, I took the wrong exit. Oh, I made the wrong turn. Right? You're not beating yourself up. Another example I use, it's like you're writing in a pencil. Oh, I made a mistake. You turned the pencil over, use the eraser, erase, and keep going. Change your mind and keep it changed. Do not talk about the negative thing or act as if it were there. Act your part as though the new condition were already in being in the outer. If you will do this, the new condition will presently appear in the outer, because the outer is always the projection or outpicturing of the inner.
Now, this is important, and there's also a caveat. If there is something that you're working on that is challenging, a health challenge, any of those things that are negative things, quote unquote, make sure that you're being kind to yourself in the process. Make sure that you're not so quick to rush to the solution that you aren't aware of how it got established, why it got established. And if there's some awareness around that, make sure you're working with someone that can help you move through it. Right? A therapist, a coach, counselor, whatever, pastor. Make sure that you're not pretending it doesn't exist when it is clearly operating in your consciousness.
Right. Yeah. And that's an important piece. I think Fox kind of touches on it lightly in the previous chapters, but we have to be able to identify the problem, right? That's absolutely necessary. And oftentimes there's work around that. But it's once we've identified the problem, now we can identify what is the new mental equivalent. We know that's what we want to replace, and then it's what do we want to replace it with.
Right. So don't spiritual bypass yourself, right? Don't all of that. Oh no, I'm supposed to pretend that da da da. That's not what we're saying. We're saying you become aware, you acknowledge, and you take the steps to release whatever that is. And then you have an opportunity to stand in the mental equivalent. Right?
Yeah. We project our own belief and call it experience, and this gives us the clue to the difference between a true action and a false or unreal action. What is a true action? A true action is one that really changes things, that gets you somewhere. A false action does not.
And usually the false action is coming from the thing you're not aware of,
Yeah.
that you haven't acknowledged.
Yeah.
Right? You're out here doing stuff and you don't even realize you're operating in fear because there's something that says I can't have it within your consciousness. That's the thing that needs to change.
Yeah.
Right? I'm unworthy of it. And you're out here doing all this stuff from your unworthiness and not from the true action of knowing I'm worthy
Right.
and I can have. Right?
For example, if your car has traction, it is moving. That is true action, and you will presently reach your destination. But if it does not have traction, there will be movement, vibration, but you will not get anywhere. You are wearing out the engine and perhaps the tires, but you do not get anywhere. The same thing happens when a soldier is marking time, as we say. He or she is tiring themselves and wearing out their shoes, but not getting anywhere. These are examples of false action.
Right.
Right? The example I use so often, and here he talks about the inner and the outer. If you were looking in the mirror and you saw that there was something on your face that you wanted to change, your makeup, whatever it may be, right? A false action would be reaching out to the mirror and trying to change it on the mirror, right? You're not going to, it's an action, but you're not going to get the results that you want, right? Whatever is happening on your face will still be there. Right? The true action is, oh, I need to change whatever's going on my face. I actually need to deal with the inner. And then it reflects where? On the outer.
And the other thing about these examples that he used, if you're standing still and you're just revving the engine, it can feel frustrating and tiring and overwhelming. And then you get all this emotion going and you're like, why isn't this working? Well, you're operating from false action. Why hasn't this changed yet? Well, you haven't gotten to what it is that's going to inspire you to true action.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of beating yourself up about it, realize if I'm standing still, the engine is revving and nothing is changing, then I'm operating from false action.
Right.
I'm wearing out my tires. I'm wearing out my body.
Right.
Right? That's what this understanding is. This true action or false action?
Suppose you have a difficult letter to write, or a sermon, or a lecture to prepare. Suppose you sit in front of a sheet of paper and draw curlicues, or cut the pencil to pieces, or tear your hair. These would be false actions, and many people do just that. Such actions get you nowhere. To decide what you are going to say, to start a current of thought and then write it down, is true action. You will note that the difference is that in the false action, you begin from the outside. You had not prepared your thoughts. You tried to begin by writing. With the true action, you got your thoughts in order first, and then the writing or outer activity followed. A false action means deadlock. A true action is always fruitful. Right? This is why I love a question that I use and offer all the time, right? Was this born of inspiration or desperation? Right? Because when we do things based on feeling desperate, oh, I had no other choice, oh, my back was against the wall,
I'm running out of time.
I'm running out of time.
Whatever the thing is.
Right? That always leads to false action, right? Inspired, if it's from inspiration, first of all, means God breathed, which means it's coming from within, right? Then it's also going to have the support of nature, right? It's going to have the support of life. It's going to have the support. Everything you need will be provided to move through that thing easily and effortlessly. Inspired action, desperate action, right? True action, false action. True activity is always from within outward. False activity tries to work from without inward. One is centrifugal and the other centripetal, if you want to be technical, right? So centrifugal means from the center out. Centripetal means from the out into the center. If you are working from within out, your work is alive and will be productive. If you are working from outside inward, your work is dead and it will have a bad effect on you. And to use today's language, that's the hustle and grind. That's what leads to stress. That's what leads to burnout. That's what leads to resentment. What leads you to being too tired to then take inspired action, right? When it inspired, because you're like, I'm tired of people. People were never the problem, right? But what was actually the motivation? If you look at, motivation is another word I use, right? Motivation is outside, is outside in, right? Somebody motivated me to do something versus being inspired to do it, right? Again, inspired comes from within. Now, someone can speak to you, you can be in this class, right? And something sparks within you, right? But it's because of the inner spark, right? That we just helped you uncover, not PG and PY said this, so I'm going to do it, right? That's motivation, outside in.
Right. Inspiration it's always available because sometimes there ain't nobody out there to motivate you.
Exactly.
Right?
That's why motivation is a problem.
That's why it can be problematic, right? Or, you've been in a situation where they offered motivation, what they thought was motivation, and it wasn't motivating you at all, right? They were saying things that didn't inspire you to do it.
Artists and literary people speak of pot boilers. You know what a pot boiler is. It is a picture that you paint or a story that you write, not because you are interested, but just to keep the monetary returns coming in. It is never good because it is not the result of inspiration. It is done from the outside and is a false action. It is a common saying among writers that 3 pot boilers will kill any talent, and that is true. The proper way to paint a picture is to see beauty somewhere in a landscape or in a beautiful face or wherever you please. You thrill to that beauty and you go to the canvas and express your inspiration there. That is art and that is true action. It inspires other people and it helps and develops you yourself. This is interesting, right? And he's going to talk about work, I think, in the next paragraph. But it's interesting when we start to think about the ways in which we've approached life, right? That we were actually, I'm just doing this to keep the lights on, right? I'm just doing this to pay the bills, right? There's a way to approach a bridge job,
I was about to say,
right? And again, he's going to talk about it in the next chapter, right? There's a way to do that, but that most of us aren't doing that,
right?
And then that leads to resentment, burnout, quiet quitting, right? All kinds of wonderful things.
Right.
If you write a story or a novel because you have observed life, because you have seen certain things happen and studied certain people and write it all down because you are alive with it, that is a true action and you write a great book. Dickens, George Eliot, Balzac, and all of the great authors, Toni Morrison.
I was going to say, can we add some people
Alice
to color
Walker,
up in here?
James Baldwin, just yes. And all the great authors wrote in that way. But if you say, I will do 1,500 words a day and give my publishers the mixture as before, and that will secure my income, your work will be dead. And this policy will kill any talent that you may have, at least temporarily, until you change your mind.
Until you change your mind.
Right.
Right. I have never heard pot boiler.
Yeah, I learned that term through this. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, pot boiler.
And it's like a real thing. I looked up the history of it. Yes. If you are in business and you are interested in your job and love it, your work is a positive action and must ultimately bring you success. Even if the work is uncongenial, but nevertheless you say, this is my job for the moment. I am going to do it as well as I can, and then something better will open up. You are working from within outward. Your work is a positive action, and before long, something really congenial will come to you.
And hence your bridge job.
Right. So this is why it's important how we speak about if we're doing something. Shout out to entrepreneurs, definitely all of our creative folks, our creative community. Right. You may be doing something that is to pay the bills, that supports you to then do your gigs or do your shows or work on your ideas. Right. there's a way to speak about this, right? With gratitude, right? Not groveling, but with gratitude, and also keeping that idea open, right? And something better will open up.
Right. And so it's not about complaining about the job. It's about keeping inside of you the inspiration, moving you forward, knowing that you are taken care of in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Right?
nothing is wasted.
And nothing is wasted. I mean, as an actor, you might be doing whatever you need to do and meet someone that becomes part of a character for something. Nothing is wasted, right? And so we hold the intention that I'm being taken care of while I allow my inspiration to lead me to what's next for me.
Absolutely.
And then that way you let go of the judgment that I'm not there yet, which is also external.
Most people know that these things are true. They know that they are true for pictures and stories and business life, but they do not realize that they are equally true for things of the soul. Yet such is the case. If you pray and meditate from the outside just because you think it is a duty or because you will feel guilty if you do not, your prayers will be dead. They will be powerless, right? We do not gather here on Sunday because it's righteous or sacred or good, right? That's not it. That's outside in living. That's outside in operating. Even if the spiritual philosophy is new thought, right? Even if the theology is new thought, right? Which is progressive. But if you're doing it from this dogmatic place outside in, no results. It's powerless. You will get no demonstration and make no spiritual progress, and you will get no joy. Sometimes the words are hard, but it's just true. But if you feel that when you are praying and meditating, you are visiting with God, and that these moments are the happiest in the 24 hours, then you are working from within outward. What does PY say to us every week moving into the meditation? We can read all the texts, but we have to what? Experience God, right?
For ourselves.
And this is the heart of why CSC exists, right? We say I am the God experience, but we say CSC is a God experience that turns on the heart, mind, and soul, right? A God experience is the realization of oneness that transcends any physicality, material sense. It transcends our five senses, right? And so that's why CSC was created, right? To be and experience the God experience. That's what it is.
And that's what we operated from, and allow that knowing to guide us in the steps, the inspired steps on what to create and how to create it and how to set it up and what kind of series. And we still do that, right?
Your spiritual growth will be fruitful, and you will grow very rapidly in spiritual understanding. When you pray in this way, there is no strain, and your soul is filled with peace.
Is there peace in your prayer?
It's powerful.
Is there begging and beseeching in your prayer?
That's strain.
That's strain.
Is there making deals with God, as I love to say, right? That's stressful.
And I know all of us grew up in the traditions, those of us that were, where that's how you prayed, right? And it was a begging and a pleading, as opposed to a knowing that God is here and wants to support you and is supporting you and is guiding you. If you're begging and beseeching, you way out there. You are not connected to the answers.
Right.
You're not. And you're going to get mad at God.
Right.
I know I was for a while.
Or mad at yourself. What's wrong with me?
What's wrong with me? All of that stuff.
Why are other people's prayers seemingly being answered and mine aren't?
Yeah. And usually the people that aren't nice people, why their prayers getting answered?
Right.
Whether consciously or unconsciously, they know how to pray.
The great enemy of prayer is a sense of tension. That
Yes.
sentence is so powerful, right? I encourage you to go back. I think it was the February series was focused on prayer and affirmative prayer and what it is. The great enemy of prayer is a sense of tension. This is why we take a breath consciously at the beginning of prayer, That's not, and it's, it's one of those things that happens like over the year. We just do it. Well, that's what we do at CSC. We breathe. Like, no, like, yes, it's good to
Yes,
breathe.
it is good to breathe.
But there's literally a reason for it, because what we recognize is that if there's any tension present, we ain't praying.
Right. We're not praying from the present.
Right.
Right? If there's any tension in it, if there's any tension in your body, that means that mind is activated and the body is responding.
So we have something that's tangible, easy, that we all can do. Close our eyes, breathe in, breathe out. Right? Several times.
Until, I can say, until you feel the relaxation.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, breathe in, breathe out. I did it 3 times, but I'm still tensing. Oh, God, please bring this.
Yeah.
I just keep breathing until I feel something shift in my body.
Powerful teaching moment right there.
Right?
Before you ever say a word.
Before you say a word, breathe. Because that breath is signaling you, there is an answer. I just got to relax and receive it. Right?
And that goes for even if you're using your one prayer this summer, you're affirming your I am prosperous morning and evening. But if you're tense, take a few breaths first.
Right.
Because you ain't praying if you, I am prosperous, I am prosperous, I am prosperous, I am prosperous. Right? Trying to force God to do something.
And maybe the prayer is, teach me how to breathe. Teach me how. Before you get to what you want, before you get to, I need to know the truth and live the truth, the God within me teaches me to breathe. The God within me shows me how to relax and receive. Right? That could be your prayer first.
Yep.
Just to get yourself, because the physiology will not support the stress.
Yep.
It will not.
Yep.
It just keeps it held there, because that means something must be wrong. Your body is bracing for the inevitability of something being wrong.
Right.
You got to relax it. It's signaling the trauma response from long ago, right? And we want to do the opposite. We want to say, okay, I'm safe.
Yep. When you are tense, you are always working from the outside inward. Tension in prayer is probably the greatest cause of failure to demonstrate. Remember that the mind always works inefficiently when you are tense. When you think, I must demonstrate this, or I must get that in 3 days, you are tense. You are using your willpower, and you will do more harm than good.
And we all have been there. I know I have. Like, look, this bill, I got to get this, right?
Yep. Remember this, the door of the soul opens inward. This is beautiful. I love this, right? The door of the soul opens inward, opens towards you, right? If you will remember this, it will save you years and years of waiting for demonstrations. Write in your notebook, the one you carry in your pocket, not the notebook that you keep locked in your desk, because that is a mausoleum. Or better still, write it on a card and place it on your dresser. The door of the soul opens inward. And of course, as we are in 2023, put it in your notes app on your phone. Maybe make it the screensaver or the background on your phone, on your computer. Of course, you can put up Post-it notes where appropriate. And pray to God that you may remember that truth every time you turn to God in prayer. You know what it means when a door opens inward. The harder you push against it, the tighter you close it.
Yeah.
Oh, this imagery is so wonderful.
It's great.
When you press or force or hurl yourself against it, you only close it on yourself. When you relax and draw back, you give it a chance to open. In all theaters and other public buildings, the doors open outward. The law insists upon this because crowds are apt to become panic-stricken, and then they push. And if the doors opened inward, the people would imprison themselves and be killed. The door of the soul opens inward. That is the law. Relax mentally, draw away from your problem spiritually, and the action of God will open the door for you, and you will be free. Again, I mean, this imagery is so wonderful, right? It's interesting when we think about it, right? A crowd of people are inside. You're in a building. Some wonderful people realized something powerful, that the doors need to push outward if there's a fire, if something's going on, there's panic, people need to rush out of a building or out of a room. They need to be able to push and keep going, right? So that they can go out, right? If the doors open the other way, the instinct is to push, to try to get out, right? And if they didn't push outward, folks would be trapped, trampled, etc. But what we understand something powerful here, the door of the soul opens inward.
It's so beautiful, and especially as this month we're talking about allowing. It's like I'm like, come in. I'm in receptive mode. When someone, you don't push the door to come to someone's house.
Right.
They open the door and let you
Invite
in.
them in. Yep.
I'm inviting in answers. I'm inviting in prosperity. I'm inviting in whatever it is.
And I encourage you, every time now as you pull a door inward, right, I encourage you to think about that and even affirm it quietly to yourself. The door of the soul opens inward. This is one of the beautiful ways that you can start to make these tangible, which is very much, to me, a Florence Scovel Shinn type thing. Right? We studied her 2 summers ago. Very much a Florence Scovel Shinn thing, right? So every time you touch a door and pull it inward.
Yeah,
right?
that comes inward.
The door of the soul opens inward, to remind yourself, to give yourself that visceral reminder, so that when the challenge and the opportunity or the crisis even shows up, you come back to it.
Right. When you leave your house, the door, our door doesn't swing out. It opens so that I can, so I'm in control of when I come and when I go, right?
Right. And then you invite in the good.
I invite in the good.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful. There is an old legend of the Middle Ages that is very instructive. It seems that a citizen was arrested by one of the barons and shut up in a dungeon in his castle. He was taken down dark stairs, down, 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 by a ferocious-looking jailer who carried a great key a foot long. The door of a cell was opened, and he was thrust into a dark hole. The door shut with a bang, and there he was. He lay in that dark dungeon for 20 years. Each day the jailer would come, the big door would be opened with a great creaking and groaning. A pitcher of water and a loaf of bread would be thrust in, and the door closed again. Well, after 20 years, the prisoner decided that he could not stand it any longer. He wanted to die, but he did not want to commit suicide, so he decided that the next day when the jailer came, he would attack him. The jailer would then kill him in self-defense, and thus his misery would be at an end. He thought he would examine the door carefully so as to be ready for tomorrow, and going over, he caught the handle and turned it. To his amazement, the door opened, and upon investigation, he found that there was no lock upon it and never had been, and that for all those 20 years, he had not been locked in except in belief. At any time in that period, he could have opened the door if only he had known it. He thought it was locked, but it was not. He groped along the corridor and felt his way upstairs. At the top of the stairs, 2 soldiers were chatting, and they made no attempt to stop him. He crossed the great yard without attracting attention. There was an armed guard on the drawbridge at the great gate, but they paid no attention to him, and he walked out a free man. He went home unmolested and lived happily ever after. He could have done this any time through those long years since his arrest if he had known enough, but he did not. He was a captive, not of stone and iron, but of false belief. He was not locked in, he only thought he was. Of course, this is only a legend, but it is an extremely instructive one. We are all living in some kind of prison. Some of us in one kind, some in another. Some in a prison of lack, some in a prison of remorse and resentment, some in a prison of blind, unintelligent fear, some in a prison of sickness. But always the prison is in our thought and not in the nature of things. There is no truth in our seeming troubles. There is no reality in lack. There is no power in time or condition to make us old or tired or sick. The Jesus Christ teaching and the unity movement in particular comes to us and says, you are not locked in a prison of circumstances. You are not chained in any dungeon. In the name of God, turn the handle, walk out, and be free. And I think this is a powerful summation of a big part of why New Thought really is a liberation theology and a liberation movement. Because what we dare to teach and say and know is that we have agency, right? That we do have the power to shape our lives and shape our minds to shape our lives. That we are not locked in a prison of circumstances. You are not chained in a dungeon, although you have been led to believe that, and your experience has said that that is true.
And we're not saying that his experience, the idea in this analogy is he wasn't in a prison.
Right.
He was in a cell, right? And the doors creaked and the man brought bread and all of the aspects of that experience were true for him and were real for him. The change comes when you challenge the experience.
Yeah. And when you have a new thought.
And a new thought.
Right. Because it reminds me of the prodigal son, right? He had a new thought, right? And initially it was like, his thought was, I'm trying to get out of here, right? And he thought it was through death, right? He was like, that's the only way. But in that investigation, that led him somewhere, right? And that's the brilliance of this idea of a new thought.
Right. And he didn't say, I'm not in prison, I'm not in prison, I'm not in prison.
Yeah.
He accepted where he was, right? So it wasn't, no, this is not a prison. This floor isn't hard. I'm not getting bread and water every day. He came to the realization, this is what it is, and I no longer choose it.
The symbolism of the bread and water is powerful because no matter what circumstance we are in, even if we're believing we're in a prison, God itself provides for us always. Now, the loaf of bread and water is meager compared to what was possible for him. We all know that there was more possible in terms of what he could potentially be eating. But even in that scenario, he still provided for it. And you think about it, it's one of the things that always amazes me when I think about the dire circumstances that I've been in, right? The experience even of homelessness and so many other things, right? But there was provision even in those moments, right? And again, that's what that kind of symbolizes in the story. Again, this is just a symbolic story, it's not a, but it is instructive.
It's instructive, and if we can remember that even in the darkest of times, that's where the gratitude piece comes in, the realization that there is good here, right? That I'm taken care of. And
if there's good here, how much more?
How much more?
Outside.
That's what I was about to say.
Right.
There is even more.
Right.
But I have to recognize that there's good here, that I'm taken care of, I'm provided for. And then I can start to look for and receive the good.
Build a mental equivalent of freedom, of vibrant physical health, of true prosperity, of increasing understanding and achievement for God. Build it by thinking of it, having faith in it, and acting the part, and the old limitation equivalent will gradually fade out. For the door is unlocked, and the voice of God in your heart says, be free. Again, some wonderful things here. I love how he says gradually fade out. Right? It's interesting how in a moment, as transformation happens, it doesn't happen overnight, and then all of a sudden, but it may feel like overnight. All of a sudden, you realize my life is completely different. My thinking is completely different. The way I interact and respond with people is completely different. And if you look back, honestly, and this is important, you can start to see how it gradually faded out. Because one of the things we do, we trick ourselves, going back even to when I was talking about things like tying your shoes or brushing your teeth or learning how to feed yourself. Right, we trick ourselves into thinking we've arrived. I've always been affirmative. Right? I've always been a person that thinks in this. Well, look, I'm honest enough to say I wasn't.
No.
There was a time in my life, P.Y. and I were just talking about this recently, and I bring my mind to it sometimes because, one, it supports me in being compassionate with those that I serve and work with. There was a time that I feared God. There was a time that I not only feared God, but operated from a place and space that judged other people, that I knew folk was going to hell, right? There was, you know what I'm saying? There's all of this dogma and judgmental mess that I had going on. But I was proud because I thought I was right. Like I was living in this, in this, Jesus only mindset, right? Or just dogmatic Christianity. And so I can't just sit here and act like, oh, I'll just always.
What do you mean?
I've always thought this way.
What do you mean you can't form a mental equivalent?
Right. No, it gradually faded out.
It did.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I remember even the fear of starting to accept the new ideas. It was like, oh Lord.
I'm like,
right?
What am I reading? What is this? Oh.
Right. But I couldn't unsee it, right? The truth was the truth, and it was clear it was true. And I knew it was going to change my entire life, as it did. Right? Because my life prior to that had been built based on a different mental equivalent. And as I started to accept a new mental equivalent, my life inevitably had to shape itself around that, right? So I love that he writes about it in that way. I also love the idea of, right, the equivalent of freedom, vibrant physical health, right, true prosperity, increasing understanding, right? So often, because I'm thinking about when we're talking about health or even finances, right? We're so zeroed in on, I don't want to be in debt, or I want to have X amount of money, right? And I was sharing with some folks a few weeks ago, like, take your mind off of money, right? It's like putting your mind on the how, right? Whatever you think that money is going to provide for you, right? Oh, well, if I had a certain amount of money, then I would have comfort, right? Then I wouldn't be worried about paying my bills, or all my bills would be paid, right? Then that's where you put your mind, right? And that actually makes it easier, because most often, right, if you're like, I need $100,000, well, you also don't even believe that you can get $100,000 as quickly as you need it, right? Or you also don't believe rather that money doesn't grow on trees, which is ultimately saying, like, you can't just get money easily and effortlessly. It's possible, right? I've seen and witnessed it. I've watched millions of dollars being created and exchanged in seconds, right? But that was folks operating in a true abundant mindset, right? And watching that work. So it's important that we put our mind and our focus of attention on, like, okay, we shared earlier in the answer to the question, like, what is the outcome? Having the money will provide what type of experience or outcome? And then that's where I put my mind. So that's why a mental equivalent of freedom, of vibrant physical health. I am happy, healthy, and whole, right? And just you take your mind off of whatever the diagnosis, the condition, or the, right?
Right. The diagnosis is important because it gives you a starting point.
Exactly.
Right? It gives you something to make whatever this is you've been feeling, it gives it a starting point. It's important. And so we don't pretend, we don't not go to the doctor and keep doing what we've been doing. Hint, hint, PY. We go and we get support and getting a diagnosis, and we move forward from there.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. So what are we going to do next week? Well, first, we encourage you, read this chapter 4, Maintaining a New Equivalent. Read this again once or twice. It's a very short reading. And what we're going to do next week is review, pull out some very key pieces from each 4 chapters that are necessary to kind of keep in the front of our minds. But most importantly, we want to, support you in making this actionable, right? So he touches on it a bit in the beginning about choosing something to work on and build a new equivalent. So we're going to give you some insight on that, right? And how to do that lovingly, right? And sit with that. We also talked about there may be some things that we need to surface, right? And thinking about what are the things that we need to heal, because that's really where we want to build a new mental equivalent. You know, I've said it so many times, but it can't be said enough. Like, I remember walking into the 4T's prosperity class in 2009 with my list. I knew what I wanted. I'm like, this is a prosperity class. I know what I'm trying to have. I know what I'm trying to do. I know what kind of money I'm trying to make. I know the things that I'm trying to create. I'm trying to finish my album. I'm trying to put it out, right? All of I had my whole list. And what I needed to work on for those 12 weeks was forgiveness. And it was the forgiveness work that gave me my list. I wasn't looking at the list or thinking about the list or praying, God makes me a famous musician, God within. Right? That wasn't my prayer. Right? My prayer was a forgiveness prayer. That was the prayer that I was praying every day for 12 weeks. Right? So,
and you got your list and more.
and more and more. And so, and even in ways that I could have never imagined. Right? So I say that because I know it. We say that because we know it.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll support you in thinking about that and being willing to do that, and then also support you in the maintenance, right? And the continuing.
The beautiful thing about this text, I mean, there's some profound truth in it, is that it's relatively short, that you can read it again and again, and you can apply it and start to integrate it. Sometimes when the book is too long or too dense, we get caught up in just the thinking of it, and we never integrate it.
Yep.
And so we put it back on the shelf and we go to the next book.
Right.
And we never really apply it. We never work through it. And the beautiful, simple, easy, short text, we sometimes discredit because it's simple and short.
Yep.
We wanted to pick one that you could start to work on now.
Yep.
Right? You're not trying to memorize every word. You're trying to apply. Like this week, practice as you go to the door and it opens.
The door of the
Right?
soul opens inward.
Just practice these things. You don't have to tell nobody. You don't have to post it on social media. This is what I'm doing this week. I'm affirming the door. The soul opens inward. None of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You give yourself permission to receive the internal knowledge and wisdom that is always there. You give yourself permission to receive the peace and the prosperity. You're just giving yourself permission.
Absolutely.
Because for so many of us, we have not done that.
Yeah.
We think that when we get certain things, we can give ourselves permission, right? When we have the money in the bank, when we have the house, when we have the lover, when we have whatever, then I'll relax and give myself permission to receive. That's not how it works.
Right. Remember,
It just
inside out.
keeps you on the hamster wheel,
Yep.
right? But if we practice in this simple way, what if life is easy, ladies and gentlemen? What if it's simpler than we're making it? What if what we need to do is rest? What if what we need to do is just allow and receive? What if you've done enough?
Yep. Yep.
What if all you have to do now is just receive?
Yep. Beautiful. Beautiful. So we look forward to continuing next week with more of the mental equivalent, and again, a review and making it actionable so that you can really put it in practice, which is important. Now, you've seen it throughout the stream, but now is your opportunity for giving. It's very easy to give to CSC. You can go to our website, celebrationsc.org/give, or you can text your dollar amount. There's a $10 minimum to 347-744-9500. Whichever mode or means,
right?
mode or means that you choose. What's most important is that we give what feels good, because we recognize that giving, it actually isn't about the amount. It's about the thinking behind the giving. That's actually what supports you in experiencing the full and complete blessing of giving. And so we give from a place of recognizing that we are giving from source, right? That and source is unending and unlimited, and is supplying us as we are opening our hands to give. We are also now, our hands are now open to receive. Right? And so we give from that place. And when we do, then we can affirm this powerful truth. All the money that I use, returns to me multiplied.
In
a never-ending cycle. Of increase. And enjoyment. To that we say amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
So it is.
So it must be. Well, we are grateful and thankful for each and every one of you. It is always a joy to gather here for the weekend service, because we recognize its purpose and its power. We are all different than when we walked in. We are all increasing in our faith and increasing in our experience of prosperity and possibility. We trust that you all will have an amazing week, that you will continue to thrive in your lives. We look forward to connecting on Wednesday for the Momentum Prayer Call. And for those that cannot make the prayer call tap into the recording, and we will all gather together next week as we close out this summer's masterclass studying the mental equivalent. So y'all have an amazing day and an amazing week. We love you much. All right. Bye for now.
Bye for now.